So, what we're talking about today is equation of lines. Now, there's two main forms that we have. One of them is point slope, which we can start out in that form, and then we'll convert it back over to slope intercept. And slope intercept is the final form we really want an equation of a line to be in, and it's also one of the easier ones to graph in most cases, as long as the slope is a nice fraction and the intercept is a whole number. Now, looking at this first one, slope intercept form, does anybody know why we call it slope intercept form? Right, it does have B. B is the intercept. And what's M? So they call it slope intercept form. Kind of right on the nose, isn't it? Yeah. 2-point or point slope form, well, the y1, x1 is a point, and we still have the, so I really called it exactly what it was. For those of you who had me for geometry last year, I tended to point this out a lot. There's a lot of stuff in mathematics. We call it exactly what it is. There's not a whole lot of creativity in naming things. We're just going to name it what it is and then move on. And that's true for this here. Now, the only other equation that we really need is the equation for slope, which is change in y over the change in x. Or as we more likely remember it is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Change in y over the change in x. Question on this so far? Now, there is another form that we put it in, and it's 2-point form. But 2-point form isn't really any more useful than any of the ones that we've listed already. All the 2-point form is that we've just taken the equation for slope and plugged it in. I wouldn't use 2-point form. If we are given 2 points, first use a slope formula to find M, and then use point slope form. Yes? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't use it because it's really just point slope form, but instead of putting slope, we've just inputted the equation for slope into it.
That's a 2. Put the y over there. Oh, it looked like an 8. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's a 2. I don't know if it'll do, or is it the other way? Yep. Yeah. Magic pin. All right. Let's look at the first problem. We're going to find, or we're going to go over is this here. The graph shows the distance asteroid 2012 DA14 travels in x seconds. Write the equation of a line and interpret the slope. The asteroid came within 17,200 miles of Earth in February 2013. About how long does it take the asteroid to travel that distance? Okay. So we have several things we need to do. The first thing we need to do is find the equation of the line. Now, eventually, we do want to get it in the form of y equals mx plus b. That's our goal. And to do that, we need to find the value of m and b. M is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Now, looking at the graph that they gave us, They explicitly gave us 1 point, 524. They told us that's one of the points. They told us one of the points by the graph, but didn't exactly label it in particularly. What's another point on the graph? There's one nice one. Yes, because it does intersect at 0, 0. So it didn't necessarily tell us this one down here, but when the time is 0 seconds, it's traveled a total distance of 0 miles, so 0, 0. So we do have 2 points. One of them 0, 0, and the other is 524. But 0, 0, yes.
Are we going to be able to have zeros for that?
Not every problem, but this one, yes. 0, 0 is the x and y-intercept, because when it crosses the y-intercept, the value of x is 0. And here, we do have the y-intercept, which is 0, 0. The x-intercept is actually also the point 0, 0, crosses both, which is helpful for this problem because it tells us that the value of b is 0, because b is the y value of the y-intercept. Now the only other thing we need to find is the slope. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we need to list one of the y values first. Which y value do we want to put in first? 24. Minus, what is the other y value? 0. Now the order that we put the y values isn't hugely important, but the x's have to mirror it. Since we put 24 first, what x value has to go first? 5. And then 0 would go second. Now we need to simplify this here. So we can do 24 minus 0 first, which is 24. And 5 minus 0 is? So the slope is 24 over 5. Now we can reduce the equation a little bit because the 24 over 5x plus 0, well, we don't really need the plus 0 because it doesn't add anything to it. So we just get 24 over 5x. So we found the equation of the line. Okay. Now we need to interpret the slope. Interpreting the slope is really telling us what is the slope telling us about this problem here. And so we're looking at the 24 over 5. And we always start with x. Well, the x, the denominator is. So we're saying for every 5 seconds, what happens? It travels how far? Yes. Yep. Because that's our slope. And yes, that is incredibly fast. Because it would take less than 5 seconds to travel from here to Siloam. Because that's not even 24 miles. So that is very fast. So we've interpreted the slope and we found the equation. So the asteroid came within 17,200 miles of Earth. About how long does it take for the asteroid to travel that distance? So we need to solve for the amount of time it takes the asteroid to travel 17,200 miles. Well, we can use the equation that we came up with to solve this. So we need to plug 17,200 into either x or y. Which one would we plug it into? Because x is our what? Time.
Oh, it's not. Oh.
So x is time, yes? So we would plug the 17,200 miles in for time, yes?
Wait,
We would plug it in for what? Distance, which is,
sorry.
why? You're good. 17,200 is equal to 24 over 5 x. Is the variable by itself? No, we need to get it by itself. So how? So 24 over 5 is being multiplied with x, yes? So to get rid of it, we can multiply,
Oh, we have to divide.
or we can divide. Which one do y'all want to do?
Divide.
If we divide, what would we divide it by?
24 over
24 over 5. We would divide both sides by 24 over 5. Because these two would, leaving x by itself. Now we can grab the calculator. Say 17,200 divided by 24 over 5, which is 3,583.3 repeated. Because 0.3 repeated is 1/3. Yeah. Interestingly enough, if we have a single number repeated indefinitely, so 0.1 repeated is actually 1/9. 0.2 repeated is 2/9. 0.3 repeated, we could say is 3/9, but 3/9 reduces to 1. 0.4 repeated is 4/9. 0.5 repeated is 5/9. 6/9, 7/9, 8/9. But there is no 0.9 repeated, because that would technically be 9/9, which is actually just 1. So this is how many seconds we had. Now, if we wanted to, we could convert this to minutes, which would mean we need to divide it by 60. No. So it's about 59.72 minutes, which is approximately what? An hour. Because if we divide it by 60 again, we're almost at 1 hour. So it takes almost an hour to travel 17,200 miles. Mm-hmm. Asteroids travel very quickly. Apparently they do. You don't want to get in their way. It's going to pretty much keep going until it hits something.
Does it not get
Well,
like?
it's a rhythm, yeah.
Oh, no, never mind. I was gonna say. God, I thought it was. I was gonna say, does it like ever like get eroded by like that fast?
Some.
Like the heat of it, like
Well,
Once it gets into our atmosphere,
then it's a meteorite, yeah.
Yeah, meteorite is when it gets in our atmosphere. Because like like how comets, I know they're made of ice, so but like
The
how
tail.
when they travel that fast, they like burn up. Is that because they're in our atmosphere? Is that because
More atmosphere, because the vacuum of space, there is no real heat.
Oh yeah.
That's part of the reason why we have to have spacesuits, because just the lack of heat there. But for the most part, they don't burn up unless they come into another object. Because if they come in or get close to the sun will eventually pull it in, and its thermal reaction will eventually burn it up just based off solar rays getting too close to it. But again, the sun is producing a ton of energy, a ton of heat. If it wasn't, we wouldn't have the temperatures we're having right now.
I like better for president.
I think, if I remember correctly, that song is actually a reference to a movie called Close Encounters.
Oh, yeah.
They actually do play that exact song.
Like that one was like
Yep. So that is from it. Now, let's look at this one here. The graph shows the remaining balance y on a car loan after making x monthly payments. Write an equation of the line and interpret the slope and y-intercept. Then we want to see what is the remaining balance after 36 payments. So this one here gave us 2 points. One of these 2 points is the y-intercept. Which one is it? 0.18 would be the y-intercept. So this is helpful. So we can go straight to our y equals mx plus b. And we know that the b value is 18. Because the y-intercept is our b value. And it's mainly the y value of the y-intercept. Because the x value of the y-intercept will always be 0. And the y value of the x-intercept will always be 0. Yes? For a slope?
So like, you just have like one fraction and it's just x and it's just y.
This?
Yeah, but like x and y. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, if you had to put that into a fraction, so you're.
Okay.
Come here. She said come here.
Is that a thing?
So if we're talking about variables in particular, the order of it depends on the equation, how we set it up, because it is possible to have y on top and x on bottom, or vice versa. But if we're talking about slope, slope is always going to have y on top, x on bottom. Because when we talk about slope or finding slope in this here, we're looking at the change in y over the change in x, the change up and down compared to the change left or right. But the other way would be looking at more equations, proportions. So it'd be a different context. Now looking at this here, what is one of the 2 y values? Or which y value do we want to use first? 18 minus 15, because the other y value is 15. Which x value has to go first? And the other x value is? Now we just need to simplify. 18 minus 15 is? 0 minus 10. Which is bigger, 0 or 10? And if we subtract it? So our slope is negative 3/10. So what that's telling us, if we interpret the slope for every 10 payments, the balance does what?
3.
Goes
3 up. Oh, 3 down.
down $3. Because we hope it goes down. If we had a car payment, hopefully we aren't increasing the value of our loan. Does $3 sound right? What is our balance? It gives us a little more information on the graph, doesn't it? Thousands of dollars, which means for every 10 payments, the balance goes down not 3, but exactly. Because when we're interpreting the slope, it is in context of this problem. So for every 10 payments, it's going down $3,000. Now we could have said for every payment, the balance goes down not 3,000, but 300. Yeah, because 3 times, yeah, because that'd be a lot of payments. Because that'd be about 60, because it'd be another 1,000, so 5,000 years probably. I don't know. That's a guess. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Okay, so we interpreted the slope, and we found the equation line. We still need to interpret the y-intercept. So the y-intercept, 0, 18, what is that telling us in context of this problem? So what does this point tell us? Yes. Where it starts, the original amount of car. The car's, we could say the car's cost or original cost because it started out at $18,000 with 0 payment. So that's how much it originally costs. Unfortunately, yeah, eventually you're going to go upside down. And we can get into that here in a minute. But the last part of this is to see what the remaining balance is after 36 payments. 36, would that go in place of X or Y? X. So Y is equal to negative 3/10 times 36 plus 18. This is another part of our answer. Now, is the variable by itself? Yeah. Plug it in. Negative 3/10 times 36 plus 18 is, which is?
Number of payments.
So number of payments is 36.
Oh, yeah.
So 7.2 is the $1,000 is what's remaining on the car. Mm-hmm.
Wait, what was it asking?
What is the remaining balance after 36 payments? So the remaining balance is $7,200. That means they paid off $10,800.
I don't want to either get buy my first actual.
Now, one thing I will say, most things, because all of y'all will take PFL at some point. Professional financial literacy, yeah. Yeah, it's part of your graduation requirements, is taking PFL. I would highly suggest taking it. It is a very good class. It's going to help you with understanding money and how to manage it, tips and tricks, and things to look out for, things to pay attention to, and kind of stuff. Yeah. Because Miss Bruckner, I think, does it for the first year. I am actually teaching it. Sherry's taught it. Miss Kendall's taught it. I do not know. Because I'm teaching it this year because we added that class into everybody's schedule, and that's what it ended up falling into. But it is a good thing to look into because, one, for the main thing, a house and a car. Yeah. So a house and a car, one thing I will say is an investment. Those are investments because, one, you have to have a car, especially to get anywhere unless you live within walking distance of your job. You're going to need a car. And as long as you take good care of it, you will get not so much your money back out of it, but you will get good use out of it. So I would say you would get your money's worth. Because because I drove it today, the blue car that I drive is a 2007. It has 234,000 miles on it. So no, and it's we got our money's worth out of it. A house is a. My parents were the original owners of it, and they bought it in '06. So we got it. They got it brand. Yeah, the new. So this year's. They always release next year's models this year.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
So this
They already said that.
2024. So the summer of 2024 is when the 2025 cars come out.
And did your parents work for it?
Yep, they put about 60,000 miles on it. I put the rest. Now,
Stop laughing at me. I don't know. I know it's so funny. Yeah, you can.
Oh, sorry. It's a car accident.
Well, no, I just, my dad just bought 2020.
4.
Yeah.
Mhm. Now, a house is the same thing. It is an investment. It is even more of an investment than cars because the price of a house, especially the land, will always go up. So if you do buy a house, it is an investment on what you are going to earn eventually if you do sell it, whenever you do sell it. Because the other thing with that is that if you rent a place for any amount of time you have to pay rent. But for the most part, especially as long as you do have decent credit, get a good credit or a good interest rate, the normal mortgage payment on a house, you can probably find equal to or less than what you could rent for.
Ooh. And that's a house. You can do anything
Yep.
you want to it.
Because if you do, and we'll go into more of that with PFL. It's pretty much your ability to kind of just history of making payments and reliability of paying something back is in essence what it is.
Ooh, that's not trashy.
Full of stuff.
My sister has a really, really good credit score. She's only 19, and it's just from her car payment.
Mm-hmm. History of payment and missing payments, especially on credit cards or any type of payment or bill, defaulting on something where if you used a card to or made a payment plan to pay off something and you don't finish the payments, kind of stuff, those hurt your credit score. Bankruptcy will really hurt your credit score.
It's basically like cable charges longer to pay with card.
But
It's like every time you use your card, it goes down, right?
it's not use it, just don't pay it back. Because if you have a credit card and you keep continuously paying it off, so you don't have a balance on it and they're not trying to come after you with collectors to get their money, it goes up. If you don't use your credit card and just leave them stagnant and aren't using anything that actually has impact on credit, it actually goes down.
What if you
But
spend you have a credit card and you spend like $5 a week just so your credit card score?
It helps some. Yeah.
Are you supposed to not also pay it off with full payment? Like you're supposed to go a little bit at a time?
10%.
10%.
Wait.
But we'll get more into that, especially PFL. Now, what I want to do is get through this one here before we finish up today. The graph here shows the distance Allison hikes in X hours. Write an equation of the line and interpret the slope. How long does it take Allison to hike 14 miles traveling at the same rate? So if we look at the graph, they did give us 2 points. One of them is the 7, 24.5. And what's the other one? 0, 0. So that means the value of B is 0. So we can kind of leave it off because it's going to be 0. But we do need to find the slope. Now what's one of our two y values?
2.5, 24.5.
So one of them 24.5, the other is
0.
corresponding x values.
7 and 0.
Now at this point here, we could type this into the calculator. Because unfortunately, we can't just leave it as 24.5 over 7. We can't have a decimal and a fraction together. So if we typed it in, 24.5 minus 0 over 7 minus 0 is 3.5. So the slope is, so our equation is 3.5x. Now if we interpret this, what we're saying for every hour, she will hike how far? She will hike 3.5 miles. Okay. Now we need, yes.
Why can't you just like take 3.5 miles? Because like last time you put, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so divide 3.5 by 14.
Yeah.
Okay. We can, but it would give us the wrong number. So like this, yes? So it's saying 0.25 miles, or not miles, 0.25 hours. Does that sound correct?
No.
No. What if you put 14 on top of them?
Does that sound better? Okay. Now if we look at the equation, because the distance traveled is 14 miles, x is still our time, yes? So we're saying 14 is equal to 3.5 times x. Now to get x by itself, we would on both sides. Well, the 3.5 divided by 3.5 would simplify to just x. And as we saw, 14 over 3.5 is indeed. Essentially, because you're talking about this problem here. Now 24 over 5 is 4.8. So essentially we're taking 17,200 and dividing it by 4.8. So we are doing this. Yeah. Yeah, essentially we did the same thing.
It takes 4. Do we have to write it takes 4
I think the
hours?
fraction was just coming out.
How long does it take her? 4 hours. Any questions on any of this here?